Welcome to Daily Drive for Friday, January 2nd, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, we wrap up our series of year-end conversations about the topics and trends affecting the auto industry throughout the past year. We're talking with members of the Automotive News retail team about all of the biggest stories they covered throughout 2025. Melissa Burden and Dan Shine are senior retail editors for Automotive News. John Hutter covers retail F&I. Paige Hodder covers dealership mergers and acquisitions and Group 1 Automotive. And Mark Homer covers retail tech. In this final portion of our conversation, we talk about the impact of AI on dealerships, the state of service and parts, and more. Mark, you covered AI's march into dealerships all year. How much has it actually changed retail?
I would say it's more in the back office, and it's only in dealerships who are early adopters, but the number is growing. So it's handling processes. It's handling answering phones. It's handling customer service on the website. It's handling just basic, for repair shops. It's scheduled appointments, that kind of thing. So for dealers that are trying this out, it's starting to make a difference in those small areas. And dealerships have been cautious about AI, and those that are adopting it are not going all out all at once. They're taking time and doing it in steps, seeing how it does, and then adding it gradually.
Well, we've had quite a few cyber attacks the last couple of years. CDK last year, 700 credit this year. Now, Mark, are dealers more vulnerable now that everything is connected?
I think everybody's more vulnerable now that everything's connected, including dealerships. Without those cyber attacks, they were still just as vulnerable. And what they are starting to do, and what experts have been long recommending that they do, is to be more vigilant and invest in constant monitoring and protection, because attacks change, they morph. With every protection that's added, cyber attackers figure out a different way in. So it requires adaptation, it requires expertise, and it requires monitoring.
John, can AI handle F&I, or is that still too complex?
To some degree, it kind of is in terms of training right now. It's kind of the reverse. F&I managers are using AI to train their conversations with consumers and, overcome objections. So I don't really see any reason why you couldn't flip it back the other way. But I think the step before that is going to be just listing things like F&I products on your website and letting customers build the deal with them in there. I mean, that's something that's already starting to, take off a little bit, and, it seems to be working. But yeah, I think you could get to the point where AI is handling those conversations. I guess the trick would be when does it give up and realize it's not going to make this, which is, I guess, the same question a human salesperson has as well.
And Dan, what about out in the garage?
Oh, about time, Kelly. That's about a question.
Sorry. We're here. But what about out in the garage, Dan? Out in the boys in the back. How is AI changing fixed ops?
It hasn't done too much yet. As John talked about, it's handling calls, and Mark mentioned handling calls as well. So if I'm a service advisor and I have a service bay lane of cars waiting to be checked in, and my phone is ringing off the hook, AI is in the background answering those calls, scheduling appointments. Some of the more progressive dealerships are having them send out text messages. Oh, your car's, just got sent back. They'll be worked on right now. Your car is ready. So those kind of things that are, they hope, freeing up the service advisor to then give better customer service to the person standing in front of them. They're not worrying about the phone that's ringing off the hook behind them and other things where they got to update customers. They're letting AI kind of do those types of things, and also get a little bit into parts ordering.
I was just about to ask you. I was like, has dealers started incorporating AI to order parts and for parts deliveries and things like that?
They do for delivery, and they can make sure there's no obsolescence, that they're running out of things, and that there's the parts are properly, if you've got enough supply. And I think again that goes to, if they see here's our the next day's repairs or the next week's repairs coming up, and then they can go to AI and say, okay, well, we're going to need a couple of brake rotors here, and I need a new quarter panel there. And so they're able to use AI to do that. We also have seen robot deliveries in parts departments, so they can load it onto a robot, and the robot will then navigate its way through the service garage into the right bay. The mechanic or technician can just pull the box off of it, send the robot on its way, and then you're just not wasting time. A lot of times, technicians will have to walk to the parts department, and then they start shooting the bull about the game last night, and it's just wasted time. And so now technicians stay at their bay, and their parts are delivered by a robot to them.
In terms of AI, I think one of the biggest, more interesting things that happened during the year was the experimentation. There is AI that is being used by dealerships to help sell cars online, for the website, and it's being tested. But a startup came out with an AI agent that's designed to help customers themselves negotiate with dealerships or dealership AI. So at some point, we could have one AI negotiating with another AI to buy a car.
I've never thought about that way. That I'm telling you, Skynet, we are all going to be part of the movie Terminator here before we know it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
It's happening.
oh yeah, it's happening. Melissa, will AI eliminate dealership jobs or just change them? What's your opinion on that?
I would say now, I think we're seeing just like a lot of industries that are testing AI and using it. A lot of it is for time saving, right? They're looking for ways that they can save their employees time, make things more efficient, faster, easier. So it could change some of their roles a little bit, or maybe they freeze up time for them to work on. I'm not sure currently if we're seeing a lot of losses in terms of jobs. It may be maybe a onesie twosie kind of thing in the back office potentially, or maybe they look not to refill something because they have a solution now in place. But I don't think it's anything dramatic at this point. However, once, in the next year or two, if things take off, I mean, there's always a chance that could change.
Now, Melissa, stay with me. You oversee buy-sell coverage. Asbury bought Herb Chambers for nearly $1.5 billion, and Carvana bought 3 Stellantis stores. What's happening with consolidation?
Yes, the Asbury Herb Chambers acquisition was the biggest of the year. Asbury bought 33 stores, gained a big presence in the Northeast, a lot of luxury stores. That was kind of the big mega deal of the year. So we're seeing plays like that. Those are smaller and fewer of those, but where a bigger group, a public group, is buying a platform and growing at a significant size. You mentioned Carvana. That's a little different. I can talk a little bit more about that maybe in a minute. But the other part of consolidation is just the continued increase we're seeing of, maybe regional groups or smaller groups buying smaller platforms, maybe 3 to 5 stores, or a smaller dealer who has 2 to 3 stores buying his 4th or 5th store, that kind of thing. And that's been continuing. And we're continuing to see, dealers that may be of retirement age selling their stores. That's continuing to happen.
Well, let's talk a little more about Carvana buying franchise new dealerships. Did anyone see that coming, and what does it mean?
It was a little surprising, I think, to some at first, but it kind of makes sense if you look at it, that they're staying with one brand so far. So they have the 3 Stellantis stores, different parts of the country, but it's giving them a window into what they could do with their platform for online selling in a franchise store. And I think they're looking for some learnings there, how they can refine their process. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to acquire some more stores. I'm not sure how many they will end up buying. I don't know that we have an idea on that for sure. But I see it as kind of a testing play, if you will, a pilot of some kind for them to see, what maybe is working really well with their platform and what they might want to change. We did see, it's not unheard of, CarMax, which didn't have the online platform at the time so much, but they did have a stake in some franchise stores for a time, but they actually sold. It's been 4 or 5 years now. I think they got out of the business. So it's kind of interesting now that we have Carvana kind of coming in.
And would you say consolidation, is it accelerating or slowing down?
No, I'd say it's accelerating. Or at least staying at the same pace it has been. I don't see that changing really in the future.
Okay. And Paige, are the big public groups still on a buying spree, or are they pulling back?
I can mostly speak to Group 1. Obviously, Asbury had a big year. But Group 1 had a pretty big year in 2024, bought a big dealership group in the UK. This year they focused mostly on, integrating that big dealership group in the UK into the business, which has not been a simple process. And, what I hear mostly in the earnings calls is that they really want to be strategic about what types of stores they're buying, what markets they're in, and when. It's not something that they're looking to grow at any cost. They want to make sure that the capital they're using to buy those dealerships goes a long way. And they're also willing to sell off dealerships that aren't doing how they want, that are maybe underperforming. And so it's less growth at any cost and more like portfolio management and really making sure that their investments are working the best they can.
John and Paige, F&I is a huge profit center for dealers. How did it fare in 2025?
Honestly, this year it's been, based on the latest Stone Eagle data, been kind of doing better and better this year than it was in 24. Let's see, the most recent third quarter, the F&I gross profit for vehicles sold was up 8.2% to $1,933 per car. So that's up over a year ago. You have the interest rates dropping, which maybe hurts a little bit on your reserve end, but it's certainly that gives you more room to build in things to deals. So honestly, F&I has been pretty good. The kind of Stone Eagle made the point that it helps that steady, like strong performance in F&I helps it as the front end margins go down on on the vehicles themselves. So that as that gets back, the F&I has stayed pretty steady.
And Paige, are dealers selling different F&I products now that EVs are cooling off?
I don't necessarily think so. There were a couple different product providers who kind of came out with some EV specific stuff, made some headlines when EVs started, growing in sales, but I don't know that they ever really became like dominant or super popular products. And, I think in general, dealers are finding a lot of success with just more niche products in general, but not like powertrain specific necessarily. Affordability has been pretty tight. And payments are high. So if someone has a specific budget for what they're willing to pay overall or each month, it can be hard to work in something like an entire service contract. But you might be able to sell them on tire and wheel if they live in an area where that's, something that, could be damaged. And so I think we've really heard about the F&I managers really working those ancillary products and really trying to get to know the person sitting in front of them. Like, what are you worried about? If I can't sell you on some of these big products, like how can I get a couple more dollars out of this deal with something that you actually might find useful? So that's where we've seen a lot of the focus.
We have heard prepaid maintenance has been like one opportunity for F&I finance managers with things like tariffs and inflation. It's like lock in all your maintenance now because, auto repair and auto parts are going to go up in price. So that has worked out. That and bundling products, we've heard, some of the ancillary stuff to Paige's point.
No, buying or selling of the clear coat.
Yeah, that's right.
Bad Fargo joke.
You need that
bad Fargo joke. Now, John, any regulatory pressure on F&I that dealers should be worried about?
The only one is that the FTC is, has been pretty defanged, but it's not completely gone away. Like they still have a case against Asbury Automotive, for example, and that started under the Biden administration, but it's continuing under the Trump administration. Asbury, just fairness to them, they've denied everything, but that's still winding its way through the process and being fought out in courts. So they haven't quite gone away. And then, to what kind of Paige's point earlier, the states are going to be the ones to watch because they'll continue to implement different regulatory reforms. You can't completely rest and just think that no regulation is going to happen.
And Dan, there's been a lot of struggles in the world of service and parts. Fixed ops sentiment dropped to near record lows in Q4. What happened to dealers' safety net?
The caveat is that they dropped. They're still in the positive territory, but they did drop. And it's from one of the questions that they asked about future opportunities, that was the lowest that the Cox Automotive ever recorded on this question. So yes, they've dropped. They're still in positive territory, but I think there's concern about pricing. Costs are going up, salaries are going up for technically, the labor rate hours are going up, pricing for parts is going up, and so repairs are more expensive, and the people are not either coming into dealerships to get their cars worked on, or they're not coming in at all. They're really having to work for business, and again, it starts all from the new vehicle sales down through leasing. If you're not getting new sales, you're not getting leasing, and those vehicles coming back to the dealership under warranty for work, then they got to go out and they got to retain the customers they have, and then they got to go out and find new customers, and that's sometimes difficult to do. 70% of customers defect from their dealership after the warranty expires, so that's a large number, and it's been that way for a number of years, and they're still trying to fight, to kind of retain the customers that they have.
Well, Melissa, if fixed ops is struggling, where do dealers make money?
Well, as John talked about, F&I has been a decent business this year, so they could look at their F&I business and try to ramp that up a little more. But I think what the good thing about a dealership is, because they have multiple departments, they usually can lean on another department when they are down in one area. So obviously they've got new vehicle sales as well as used vehicles. That might be an area they could look to grow in terms of acquiring more inventory or reconditioning used vehicles. So I think it's just kind of across the board. They would just look for kind of where the best opportunity is. But I think F&I would be one of them that they might look to this year.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer for his help on today's podcast. You can get the latest news on artificial intelligence, finance and insurance, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We're off for the weekend as we gear up for our coverage of CES in Las Vegas. Come back on Monday as we resume our regular programming here on Daily Drive. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.